Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you were running for City Council.
A little bit about myself. I've lived in Columbia 30 years. I came here as a student, and I was one of the lucky few who managed to find a job locally. As part of that, I've been part of two of the major success stories in Columbia. My very first working job was Data Storm when they were here, and now I work for Carfax. I've worked for them for 11 years. I've been in technology that entire time, and it's been an exciting thing. I'm president of my neighborhood association for the last 5 years. One of the things that I'm very proud of is that I'm currently the head of the Elks Lodge here in town. It's between 500 and 700 members. We have been number one in the nation for the last 11 years, and this very week we're submitting the application for number 12. I have a lot of hope for that, especially as the president of the lodge this year. It really kind of all falls on me. So we're looking forward to that. The reasons that I'm running are a little varied. I'll be honest. I don't find my current councilman to be ethical, and I don't find him to be a good steward of my money. There has been an issue, and I'm sure it's come up in the press, where Mike Trapp had taken a job with the district downtown, and then he voted to give a tax break to a hotel in the downtown. While Mike taking the job is legal if he is the lowest bid, representing his employer, and more importantly, the manager of the owner of the hotel is on the board, I believe is a serious conflict of interest. So that irritates me a little bit. I do live in the second ward, and it is, in Parkade, it's a working class neighborhood. When I moved in there, all the families around me were basically the original homeowners or the children of the homeowners. There have been an awful lot more gunshots in the last few years. There were 6 shots fired on the corner of my lot, the 27 shots fired on the corner of Texas and Garth. 4 of those entered the home of my neighbor on the back corner. One of them landed within 3 feet of his head while he was sitting on the couch. We had 57 shots down the business loop this summer. It's a nice neighborhood. We shouldn't be having running gun battles. As you start looking at that, you find out that we are not just a little short on police officers. We are almost 50% of what we should. Firefighters, honestly, a lot of people don't realize this are the same way. There are standards for what it takes for a firefighter to fight in a building. We don't maintain enough on-duty firefighters to fight fires on the 5th floor and above. Part of that is they have to do it as a relay. They come in with the safety gear, and they have to carry the equipment up till the first team is exhausted. The idea is there should be a second team immediately following them to pick up the gear and fight the fires. We don't have that, which means we have to wait until either off-duty firefighters come in or volunteers come out of the county. If you look at the downtown area, there are an awful lot of buildings with 5 floors and above. It's not that we don't have the money. If you look at Lawrence, Kansas to the west of us, whether you like them or not, you know where they are, and you understand they're a college town just like we are. They're about 3/4 our size, and they spend 25% more on public safety than we do. If you'd like to check out my website, there are a couple of answers that I have there on how we could raise the money that we need to get to where we need to be. But as we're going to try and keep this under 2 hours, I think I'll wrap this first question up.
If elected to the City Council, what will be your top priorities?
As I mentioned, public safety. I will admit I am a smaller government guy. One of the things that Columbia has an awful lot of are regulations. The regulations and the tax base that we put on this town are one of the reasons why Columbia is the most expensive metro area in the state of Missouri. Now, the important thing to explain about that is the metro area is an entire area. Say, for instance, St. Louis. We're not talking about we're more expensive to live than, say, Ladue or Clayton. But we are very expensive to live, and it's because of the regulations that we pile in and all of the extra services, and it makes it tough for the working class folks to stay here and get a job. So I tend to focus on what I'm going to call the basic services. I want to make sure that we have water. I think that we need to make sure that the sewer does not back up in the homes of our friends and neighbors. And we need to have roads. One of the things that we did just this year in an attempt to bolster our police force, they took money, roughly $400,000, to open up 4 new positions. They haven't been able to fill those positions because of issues within the police department. However, that $400,000 came out of the roads budget. To me, that falls under the critical infrastructure, and you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's not the kind of decisions you need to make.
The Chamber has for the last 2 years produced a local agenda of priorities to advocate for and advance with the City Council. Are you familiar with this agenda, and what will you do to support these policy priorities?
There are several different things you can do. Some things may require legislative change within the city government, and within those, that's a fairly easy deal. A lot of times, and I'm not familiar if the chamber does capital days. Several organizations that I'm with travel down as a group to visit with various legislators down at the state capitol and explain why we're looking for the things that we're looking for, why we want these things and why we believe them to be important. I would certainly be willing to participate in those items. There are a few things that I think that we can also look at that would help those. One of the things that I've noticed that we had mentioned was funding for the university. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to see the presentation put on by the marketing department of the research reactor. Some of the medicines they make there are made nowhere else in the world. I'm a bit of a techno junkie, so I happen to know that several other places in the world who produce those things are living in areas where the plants are getting old. For various political reasons, they're being shut down. That's only going to make the research reactor here as a medicine production facility even more significant. And the gentleman who does the presentation is amazing if you've never seen him. That's somebody that if you want to talk about funding for the university that you should take down with you.
Tell us one thing the public might not know about you.
Well, I'm not sure how important it is, but before I became a student here at the university, I did in fact receive a nomination to the West Point Academy from Harold Volkmer. Kind of a big deal at the time. He was the head of the Armed Forces Committee. So the upside of that is the only reason I made it to Mizzou is because it turns out that at the time they had a physical requirement on vision. Your vision had to correct to 20/20, but at the time I think it could not have been more than 20/40 uncorrected. I did not have remarkably good vision before I had LASIK, so but that is something that probably not a whole lot of people know about me.
In closing, tell us why the voters should support you.
That's a really good question. What you'll find is that the people in my district, roughly 90% of them, place public safety at the top of their list. This is something that Mike has not done a good job at. The feeling of safety in our area has fallen. The satisfaction of the people who are in public safety has fallen as well. You'll find that both the firemen and the policemen have endorsed me after listening to my discussion of what they need to do. Part of that, strangely enough, is not immediately starting a new tax. The city will eventually need new funding. That means the populace has to trust the people who are on the city council. And so far they don't, not really well. Look at the last several tax measures we've had. They've all been defeated. You've got to have somebody who's ethical. You've got to have somebody who's willing to work for the people and who's going to stand up and take a couple of hard knocks. Funding is falling in the city, and that means somebody's going to have to be making some very tough decisions. I'm the kind of guy who can do that. You know, if public safety is a concern of yours, it should be clear that I'm the guy that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for somebody who's going to try and cut regulation, make Columbia a little bit more affordable to live, a little bit easier to do business with, I'm probably your guy. And most importantly, the thing you should ask yourself is when you go to the poll, would you rather be loved or trapped?